Quipster Puck here. I know that it's been a while since I brought you another terrifying tale, but don't worry. Tonight's story is scary enough that it should more than make up for it. You know, it's widely believed that children are more in tune with the supernatural than most adults. But there are those lucky or unlucky few that manage to retain this ability. Tonight's story is from an author that is one of those lucky mortals. So, sit back, relax, and prepare to meet the man in red.
There is a man that wears a red sweater over blue jeans that passes my parents' bedroom. Looking down the long hallway that divides the two halves of their double-wide trailer, he always passes the opening from left to right. My parents, my birth mother and adoptive father, built a respectable addition at the rear of the double-sided trailer to create room for my 6 sisters and I. It was only after this addition that I started seeing this entity. The first time I saw him, only a few months after the add-on, I was at the dinner table with my family, and I perceived movement down the long hallway. I always sat at the foot of the table, my stepfather at the head, with my mother and sisters unequally paired between us on both sides. The foot of the table jetted out slightly past the dining room, allowing me to see the entirety of the long hallway beyond the kitchen wall that blocked everyone else's view. Only my littlest sister to my right could lean to the left to see down the hall. That night, we were enjoying a lively Sunday family dinner when the movement came. I turned my head as the man in red centered the field, and I watched as he passed to the right. I quickly asked,
"Who's that?"
And my stepfather jumped up and came to my side looking with me.
"Who? What?"
he hurriedly asked, and I replied I saw a man in their room. I never broke visual contact with the corridor, and watched as my stepfather slowly walked down the hallway, reached the threshold of his room, and scanned. He called from there to my mother that no one was there. Later that evening, I was scolded about the experience and reprimanded harshly for making things up and scaring my sisters and mother. There are 2 details that need interjection here. First, there is no exit on the right side of that room as you enter it from my field of view. There should have been the man stuck on that right side of the room, but he wasn't. Second, at this time, as I found out years later, my biological father had been hiding out and watching us from across the creek just past our yard. I learned as a teen that he had been obsessed with losing his family because of his infidelities, and wanted to see us and watch us. I had also discovered that he had broken in several times during those first years of the new marriage, leaving and taking things. When I had mentioned the man in red, my parents assumed it was my biological father breaking in again. I wasn't told this when I was 8 years old at the first glance. Over the months and years that followed, I would see him regularly, always passing from left to right. When I aged into my teens and felt the false courage of puberty, I began to seek him out every time I saw him. I would rush to their room, but always be alone when I arrived. Once in a while, I would see him when others were in the room, and I would rush in, still not seeing him again, and disrupt whatever activity was occurring. By the time I was a wise teenager, I had experienced a slew of paranormal experiences all over the place. But None had repeated like the man in red, or had worried me so much. Around 16 years old, I started feeling his presence before he would appear. I would feel a twinge in my chest, and I would look down the hall, and sure enough, he would pass. He would never look down the hall, just straight ahead as he walked the 3 steps past the opening. I can't quite recall his profile, even though I've seen it hundreds of times now. My parents' house featured a wall in line with the hallway that had a kitchen on one side and our entertainment center opposite. My usual stomping ground was in the space between the TV and our wood fireplace, watching TV or playing video games. My legs would always rest on the TV stand, unless I felt the man in red, and I would draw them outside of his potential line of sight from my parents' room, although he never looked. I moved out at 20, and the sightings would occur much less frequently. After getting married at 22, moving away and all over America in the Army, it would be almost a decade since I spent more than a night or two at my parents' house for holidays or surprise visits. Once I was honorably discharged, I led my small family back to my hometown and began to frequent my parents' house much more often. This renewed visiting meant a renewed string of consistent sightings. We have a traditional Sunday dinner weekly, and it almost became clockwork. I'd sit with my parents and my wife and 3 kids, and the man in red would pass, left to right, as always. The last 5 or 6 years, I have seen the man in red every Sunday dinner, at least once, often 2 or 3 times, and had grown numb to it as I had in my youth. I still feel the twinge, and I always know to look. Last week, as we had dinner, my 11-year-old son sat close to my right, which was odd, but he is autistic and his behavior can change from day to day. I felt the twinge, but didn't look right away, as I was adding a gorgeous mound of mashed potatoes on my plate. I noticed my son, suddenly agitated, staring down the hallway. I asked him what was wrong, and in his sweet, still innocent voice he answered,
"He never looked at me before."
Welcome back! I do hope that you enjoyed tonight's story. You know, you may be wondering, why is Quipster Puck presenting a story that he already narrated on another channel? That's true, that is very true. I did this same story for Spades of Death. However, I have since spoken to this author, and he assures me that it's based on true life experiences. And not only that, but he's written another terrifying tale from his experiences, just for me to present to you. If you have any terrifying stories, true or otherwise, that you would like me to present to our viewers, then please email them to quipsterpuck@gmail.com. It will be listed in the description below. Well, I guess that's all for the night. Ta-ta for now.